Yeah, it is a label. It's a marketing benefit from it, really. That, you know, because TechCity is a sort of non-profit sort of government organisation that sort of represents all the tech clusters around the UK. The next level above that is being recognised as an alliance partner. I still don't know what that means, but yeah. But that's the next level up, and I think then you get more. I mean, like, you know, a good example of the influence is that you know, like Fiona was invited to a round table at number 10 a few weeks ago, weren't you? Yeah. So you know, it's kind of accelerated us up to that level, which is pretty amazing. So.
It's a sort of high Techstars UK.
Sorry?
Level 39 was support.
Yep. Okay.
Was, the 39 second level, and they were talking about the fact that UK is now the hardest sort of economy in terms of tech facing fraud, which is
okay.
completely in all areas.
It is just a label, but it's important because it brings credibility to the region, particularly when you're looking at bringing investment in. So we're raising investment round at the moment, we're going to be raising more substantial Series A later. So we're talking to big venture capital firms and institutional investors. Being recognised as coming from Norwich ordinarily would have some stigma attached to it, but now we can say we're a part of TechCity. That's a very, very positive thing to be able to say to investors. So it is a label, but it brings lots of real tangible benefit with it.
And also, I mean, going, you know, Michael, Norfolk County Council.
No, it has a major impact, and as I say, from an inward investment point of view, substantial. It's a national government organisation that links in with UKTI, so they recognise that we actually have something here which is pretty unique and actually getting away from the tourism and farming side that we
Yes. Sorry?
Get to be known for something other than
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Cool. So we're going to kick. So, the whole Techstars experience, what was leading up to the end demo pitch that's quite an important part of it. So we're actually going to start at the end, and Ben's going to do, and you're going to do the demo. So we're going to do the final demo pitch. So who was there?
So this was a pitch to about 700 investors and community members in a big city, a big cinema in Whitechapel. So demo days are kind of there were 10 companies in our cohort. It was a big kind of end of programme show and tell, show everyone what we've done, pitch to investors, because we're all raising money at the moment. So as we go through this in a second, this is a pitch, but bear in mind this is a pitch designed for that audience.
Yeah, we want to see
largely institutional investors.
Cool.
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Fire away.
It's been some time since I've done this, so I'll see if I can remember it all the way through. So, imagine an insurance claims business so efficient that the work of 500 people could be done by just 50. Now, what if those claims were settled fairly, consistently, and for less? Good evening. I'm Ben. I'm CEO and co-founder of RainBird, and we've done this. I met my co-founder James in his previous business. It was his third successful exit. We took what few experts knew about insurance fraud and built an award-winning, scalable software platform that saved British insurers tens of millions of pounds annually. Now, that worked really, really well, but it took a large team of software developers, too many developers. With my background in artificial intelligence, I knew that this could be done a better way, so I founded RainBird. RainBird is an artificial intelligence platform that any business can use to scale up high-quality, consistent decision-making. Your business is dependent on the quality and consistency of human decision-making processes. But because organisations are made up of people, they're subject to human frailties. People have good days and bad days. They suffer Monday morning blues and hungover Fridays. Everyone knows that person on the team who somehow seems to do twice as much as everybody else and does it better. What if everyone could be like them? In competitive markets, all organisations need to do more with less. RainBird is a platform that supports your staff so that every day is their best day. Now, since entering Techstars, we've started pilots with more than a dozen large organisations. Let me tell you about how 2 of those are using our technology. RainBird's being used by the UK's largest retail insurer to automate human-intensive supply chain decisions. They're taking the know-how of just 2 specialists and enabling their entire team to make expert risk assessments. RainBird's being used by Heart Automation, the world's largest machine tool manufacturer. They're using RainBird to make a complex technical sale as successful for new recruits as it is for their very best salespeople. Tools built using RainBird are available to everyone in your organisation 24/7. It consistently delivers the right decision time after time, so you can sell more effectively, support your customers more efficiently, do more with less. Now, many businesses are turning to machine learning to provide automated decision making, but this doesn't always work. You may not hold sufficient prior data, or you may need to know how a decision was reached. Many organisations turn to decision trees, but these are single use, they don't scale well, and they require a large team to support. RainBird is different. RainBird takes actual human expertise and applies it directly, and it will show you how a decision was reached. So let me show you what RainBird looks like. RainBird was built specifically for business people. You model your knowledge visually so you are in control. You map the concepts, relationships, facts and rules, the logic that makes your business tick. RainBird enables you to quickly publish consultative systems like this by adding just 1 line of code to your website. And we provide an API for integration into larger software projects. RainBird is available through a simple monthly recurring license, and we provide dedicated hosting for enterprise and appliances. Largest organisations. Ah, yes, of course. It's been a while. We're also working with some of the large global technology consultancies who provide a fantastic gateway to some of the world's largest organisations, and we've agreed terms with the first of these partners. Now, there is huge potential here. Over the next decade, the impact to the global economy of automating knowledge work in this way will be more than $5 trillion a year. That's second only to mobile as a disruptive technology. By 2020, the customer will manage 85% of the relationship with enterprise without interacting with a human. RainBird is the platform that enables this. We can do all of this because RainBird's backed by an amazing team. We bring extensive skills and experience in artificial intelligence, in building and scaling businesses, in corporate development, in corporate sales and professional services. And most of us have worked together before. We're now raising a seed round of $1 million, of which now 75% has been committed, and we'll be raising a more substantial Series A later in the year. We would love to talk to you about investment opportunities with us or about how RainBird can help your business. I'm Ben, we're RainBird, thank you for listening. Most of it, that's pretty good, right?
I've also got the amazing notes, which is fun.
So shall we have a hat round to raise some money?
It's only 25% left to go, right?
Yeah, so we can go straight into sort of Q&A, just a chat, or we can grab a drink before that. What do you guys want to do? You want to grab a quick drink or jump straight in?
Jump straight in.
Jump straight in. All right, cool. So if all the RainBird crew can come to the front.
They're all brand. I'm the only one on brand.
So we're going to open, so they're just going to, we'll open the door to anyone to ask questions.
I'm going to ask you a specific question.
But I think just to make it clear, we probably should just kick off just to talk, to someone to give an overview of what Techstars is actually.
Sure.
Yeah.
Okay. So, if you don't know what Techstars is a startup accelerator program. Startup accelerators have become quite prevalent over the last 5 or 10 years. There are something like 130 accelerators and incubators in London alone at the moment, so many thousands all around the world. The ones you might be familiar with are Y Combinator in Silicon Valley, Techstars, which is based out of Boulder, but have centres all around the world. We've just opened an accelerator in Berlin. You might be familiar with 500 startups and various others. So a startup accelerator is all about taking what you would ordinarily discover and learn about a business over maybe an 18-month or 2-year period, and compressing it down to a very, very short period of time. Models vary quite dramatically. The Techstars model is very mentor-driven. So most accelerators will take a small percentage of equity in your business. They'll inject some cash. You then go and spend, in our case, 3 months in their office. Where we had 10 businesses in total, so you're all working very closely together. And then through that 3 months, we go through a very intensive mentor program. We saw 80 mentors in the first 2 weeks of Techstars, with lots of outside interest, office hours, deep dives with lots of very influential people to help shape the business, help us understand our product, find our customers, find product market fit, develop the platform, develop the technology behind it, help build out the team, all the things that would ordinarily take a business a long time. It's a little hard to quantify quite what that's done in terms of whether it would have taken us 18 months, would have taken us 2 years, but certainly the 3-month program compressed a very large amount of learning down to a small amount of time.
Did you actively target to do the incubator program, or did it just happen by chance? Or?
It was a little bit of both. We were in the process of applying to Y Combinator when, actually through one of our investors, we were introduced to the Techstars program and rocketed into the final 20. So 1,700 businesses applied for the winter cohort, of which 10 were selected, including us. You go through then an intensive set of panel interviews and rounds of due diligence and so forth before you get accepted on the program. So we were already thinking of going through an accelerator program, hadn't decided whether Y Combinator or Techstars was the best fit. I'm very pleased we ended up going for Techstars. Y Combinator is not so mentor focused, and I think the mentor drive that Techstars has given us and continues to give us is invaluable.
Cool. Feel free, anyone, if they want to ask a question, just put your hand up. Right. Yeah.
So how did you go from idea, original concept, to actually forming a team and getting to cohesion to move forward, if you like? There's lots of people in the room probably sitting there with ideas or working on things in the back bedroom.
Yep.
But it's a million miles away from actually having a cohesive team working on a focused project.
So I came up with the idea for RainBird after I left our previous business. I went to James, the co-founder, said, I think I've got this great idea, what do you think? We kind of bashed it around a bit and came up with this thing. He injected some initial seed money to kind of get it going. It was just me at the time. Then we reached out to a local network of angels, presented the idea. We raised a seed round last summer, which enabled us to recruit to a team.
So can I just say, so literally you were working off the idea of raising money off the back of an idea that really didn't have a lot behind it apart from concept?
Yes, pretty much. I mean, I had prototype that I worked on and white papers that I'd written about around the idea, but it was a concept. That's right. Our Techstars cohort was a little different to previous in that there were a number of more mature businesses like ours, because often accelerators take businesses that are really at that very, very early stage. But there were a couple of businesses in our cohort who had really just one founder, just started, just an idea, no team, hadn't written a line of code, had just got started.
And one didn't even have a business.
One didn't even have a business, yeah. Often those accelerators look for people and fit rather than idea. And actually with them, the benefit of Techstars was even more pronounced, because you could see them go through and execute and come out of Techstars with a team, with traction, with revenue, with commitment for significant investment going on.
I'm just going to take the next question, sorry. Just so we can bring everyone in the team into the conversation. So just forget about the whole company, and the reason why the company did it. From a personal point of view, what did you get out of it? Was it worth it? And maybe what were your maybe highs and lows? Just give us a little, point, because it must have been quite a scary thing, because you have to put yourself out of the comfort zone, probably quite a lot,
It's very,
mean, I hadn't even heard of Techstars. The first I heard of Techstars was when I was told we were applying for it. I was like, oh, brilliant, fantastic, what the hell is Techstars?
Yeah, you're moving to London, Chris.
Yeah, that's why I went, because everyone else went. So, followed everyone, didn't it? So I think, as a non-techie, you know, I had a lot of preconceptions about Techstars. And, you know, I had a massive fear that we'd all walk down there and, you know, we'd be fittest people in the room by a country mile, and me and Barry, who were non-techies, were going to be the super thickest people in the room. Which actually is what happened.
So there's quite a lot of fear before.
Oh, yeah, ridiculous. You know, very, very nervous. Like the first couple of days walking in, you know, when people are introducing themselves, I founded ex-businesses, I used to work at Google, I just kind of cower in the corner and think, oh shit, you know, I worked in insurance, go me. So I think actually getting in there, you kind of realise that they're just normal people that have an idea, but actually the difference is they found a way, go back to your question, Sean, they found a way to get it from the bedroom to the world. They were just normal people. You know, I had kind of visions that they were all going to be superhumans. So probably the biggest thing I took out of it was, you know, I genuinely think anything's possible. You don't have time to think about whether or not you can do something, you just have to do it. You know, and you find a way to do it. So coming out of it is pretty enabling.
Right.
You know.
And your lowest point?
The first Thursday after Christmas. So we did, every Thursday night was everyone sits downstairs, has a few beers, and they talk about highs and lows and what you're going through. And the first 6 weeks before Christmas, Ben stood up every Thursday and said, "This is RainBird, any questions?" Whole room puts their hand up, "What the hell is RainBird? I don't get it." So everyone did a load of work over Christmas, we kind of reshaped what we were doing, reshaped how we were describing it. The first Thursday back, we're going to kick ass tonight, it's going to be awesome. Everyone's going to understand RainBird. Any questions? Whole room hands go up. You know, and that was, I really distinctly remember walking to the pub thinking, what are we doing here? You know, we can't tell 30 people we've spent 6 or 7 weeks with what our business is and explain it in something other than verbal diarrhea. So that was the most.
And your high?
I don't know if there was a specific high. I think actually just kind of, you know, genuinely having the belief that we can achieve it.
Yeah, those ones are drinks, right?
Yeah, Thursday's
Christmas party.
Yeah. Yeah, actually my lowest point was the day after the Christmas party.
Okay, so for me, I don't have a degree. I left university after the first year, and I spent most of my career wondering if I've been missing something. Get a lot of jobs where they say, oh, you wanted a degree, and people talk about all the stuff they learned at university, and I've sort of learned everything on the job. So it was nice to be able to go along and sort of validate that I do kind of know what I'm doing. And also, at my level, everyone's making stuff up as they go along. So it was good to sort of just validate that. High points for me, I think, were actually just going. It's been a massive boost for my career. I've got contacts coming out of my ears now. I wanted to speak about databases. So you just turn around and go, I want to talk to someone who knows a lot about databases, and 2 days later I've got 2 very, very technical engineers who are spending an hour with me talking very, very technically about databases and helping us out. So it's cool stuff like that, and I just have access to it. I think the lowest point for me was actually 3 o'clock on demo day. We spent 3 months, it was actually 102 days, where everything is about doing that presentation. The day happened, and it was just, if anyone's married or had a kid or anything, it's the same thing. The day just is a blur. Then you have a whole lot of investors come around and speak to you, and we did all that, and then they go, and you're stood in a room, and there's sort of bits of food on the floor, and you've got business cards here, and there's a few people milling around, you're like, right, that's it. What do I do with my life now? So I had to go take a moment. These guys were walking back, and I'm like, I'm going to walk back by myself if you don't mind. And it was a real sort of shock, and it was that going from 100 miles an hour back down to normal speed.
I was probably a lot more grounded than probably those explanations. Generally every week pretty much followed a similar pattern for me. Monday was great, just got there after being back the weekend. Tuesday was fine. Wednesday, are beginning to get on my nerves a little bit. Thursday, you begin to get even more. Friday was great because you're on your way home again. You kind of repeated that for the majority of the time. It was great. Probably for the company, for RainBird, it was fantastic. For me individually, it was great. I didn't go out to many of the meetings because being a developer, then as things changed, I'm probably more focused on the coding and so on. But by being there, you got to see why things had gone in a certain direction. And that was great to be part of that. Otherwise, if you stay in Norwich and things are happening and then you get told what you've got to do, you don't have that understanding of why you suddenly changed, then you're not necessarily going to be so on board with it.
That would have been incredibly impressive for you, actually.
Yeah.
Nathan's task list, it literally got to the stage where the stuff that Nathan was doing was the stuff that Nathan was doing, and everything else underneath, we'll worry about when he gets to doing it.
Yeah, there's a long list and everyone kept adding to it, but
moving around, changing.
by the time I get halfway down, I'm sure it'll be completely different again, as development tends to go. So it was good. It was a good experience.
I think actually, just on something Nathan said as well, on top of all the hours, we were all living together as well. You know, so some days spending 14, 15, 16 plus hours together in the office working on top of each other. And then you go home and I get to live with that for 3 months.
That's my wife, it's fantastic.
Violence is sanctioned.
At least one other team who literally went through group therapy before the end of the programme.
Oh really?
Yeah. We actually did very well. We were told by John Bradford, who runs the programme, he said you will have an argument, the team will have an argument and a falling out during the 13 weeks. And I don't think we did.
We did, but you didn't know us.
Hands, questions? Yes? Sophie?
Did you, the journey you went on from start to finish, was that roughly kind of what you expected your journey to be if it had been over a year or 18 months normally? Or did you actually change course in a way that you did to a certain extent or to a greater extent where you didn't expect to?
That's a very good question. It's almost impossible to tell because we don't have a control RainBird to see how it would have gone.
I'm going to jump in there. We expected the 3 months to go in a certain direction,
yes,
and it didn't.
And it didn't, yeah.
So you expected...
We expected the 3 months to go in a certain way.
Right.
And we'd sort of planned it out by the time we got there. We knew what we were going to do over the period of the 3 months and how it was going to pan out. And I think that lasted day and a half. And then the next plan lasted another couple of days. So I think just from that point of view, it's completely different to what we would have been doing.
So one of the things you find with any, I suspect you find with any mentor-driven program, but particularly something that's as intense and so mentor-focused as RainBird, as Techstars. So in the first 2 weeks we saw 80 mentors. And then we saw many more over the period of the time, and you communicating with them all the time. Techstars is all about network and all about connections, and you don't lose that just because we're out of the program. So I'm still connected with all this huge network. What you find is that mentors will give you very polarising views, and sometimes quite strongly opinionated polarising views on the way your business should go. So you'll have someone over here saying, absolutely, you need to be a horizontal platform. You know, screw anybody who tells you that you need to be just focusing on financial services. Go and raise £20 million and go and do this. And then over here, you have somebody saying, no, you need to rebrand yourself as FinBird and focus just on banks and don't do anything else. And actually, they're both very convincing. One of the best bits of advice that we got through that process was from Gil Dibner, who is an Israeli VC, who said, I'm going to give you some advice, don't listen to a word I say. What you need to do is take all the advice everyone's told you, then go up a mountain, decide what sort of company you want to be, and then come down and just execute on that and do nothing else. Actually, we pivoted as part of that process. So we took all this advice on board, we thought we were going in a certain direction and realised that was going to be very, very hard. There were lots of technical and business reasons why that was difficult to do, and so we completely changed direction. And that's been really important, and actually now that's where we're getting our traction, where our projected revenue is coming from, how we're getting traction with investors, and all of that's come because of that pivot. Now I don't know whether if we'd stayed in that original way, we would have got similar traction but in a different way, it's hard to tell, but I'm very confident with it.
I got to the stage where I was arguing, they're saying it should be vertical, it should be horizontal, I'm going to take the average, let's be a diagonal.
So is that where the pivot happened? Going for verticals and going for platform based?
So we were, well, It was between, the pivot happened between being a self-service platform that anybody could come and sign up, and we were going for the volume play, so lots and lots and lots of sign-ups on very low margins. We pivoted into enterprise sales, essentially. So we're now, there is a community edition, you can all come and sign up now and go and play with it, but now we're focused on consultative sales into enterprise.
Just really quickly, on that enterprise thing, was that quite common for a lot of people there that were starting out as a consumer platform?
Yes, it was. So one of the other big pivots was a company called UB, Universal Basket. They came into Techstars with this platform that was supposed to set on your mobile phone and allow you to buy lots of things from lots of different merchants and check out in one place. And that was a consumer-focused platform that would go on, that would just go everywhere. That's very, very difficult to actually get traction for. They pivoted into something which they're now selling to affiliates to produce an affiliate offering, which has gained a massive traction, and they're doing very successfully off the back of that. Did anyone else make any significant pivots?
I'm not sure necessarily every company knew who their customer was when they.
No, I think that's true. I think that a lot of Techstars or any startup accelerator is about finding focus, and it can take years for a company to find focus. So it's about kind of compressing that down. Big Data for Humans found their focus in retail. They're a big data company. I think GeoSpock probably found that they are essentially they came into Techstars being a geospatial database. They left Techstars being an n-dimensional big data pattern matching platform, which is really, their tech hasn't changed, but it's about how they position what they're doing.
Actually, just on that, one of the, I kind of make light of our frustrations of not being able to explain it. Within the first couple of weeks, everyone else stands up, and you think, this is fantastic. They've got the 10 supposedly best and brightest tech companies in the country, and none of them could explain their business. And you speak to people in the pub after, and they're like, this is crazy, I've been doing this for a year. In some cases, people have made money, and they're like, I kind of don't know what my business is. Because, the focus you get put under, the first few deep dives, Incisive doesn't even cover it. You kind of, because the first few we all did together, and you kind of walk out after and it's like being sent to the headmaster's office. And they kind of think, I don't want to say anything because it's going to be wrong, so I'll just let Ben and James take the heat. So it's very, I'm still doing it now. So it's kind of, whilst it was uncomfortable for us, everyone else was in the same boat, and actually it's quite reassuring. So sometimes the Thursday night drinks were like, it was like going to a bloody wake. So maybe one company out of 10 had a good week.
Actually, some of the ideas that you would think would be very, very easy to explain. So KnitAmp, they do on-demand knitting. The easiest thing in the world to explain. You've got a knitting machine and you send it a pattern, a hat, a jumper, or a scarf or something. But actually explaining that in a way that investors want to hear and in a way that investors want to give money, it turned out to be very difficult for them. They were changing their pitch the night before demo.
It was with them, as it was with us, actually, it was about finding focus around business models. They had the tech, they had the API, they've got an industrial knitting machine which they can go and control, and that's fantastic, and you can connect with it, and it's very tactile, so it's easy to explain and easy to be excited about. But actually, for them, it's difficult explaining what the commercialization, how do you monetize this, where's the opportunity, what makes it defensible, and all of that good stuff. So Techstars is what gave them that focus.
So do you think that's more down to them not understanding how to market it or not understanding their own business?
I think part of it was about not understanding the opportunity that they had with their business. I think that was true for quite a lot of us. So there are a bunch of companies who had technology which was great and interesting, but it's about finding product market fit and how you can go and monetize it, and that's the difficult bit, and that's the thing that can kill a business. You can go and raise a load of money at the start of a business and then go and spend 18 months doing stuff. If you can't find product market fit, it'll just die. But if you've got an accelerator with loads of mentors and can help you shape that into something quickly, then it's a huge benefit.
I think actually position that you used several times there is really important. So there's a lot of times where we talk about how our positioning had changed, and I'd come away from the conversation thinking nothing's actually changed, but how we're describing it and how we're positioning it to investors was really important. So there was several weeks, particularly during the mentor thing, where I kind of didn't worry about understanding the finer points. Because you wanted to settle down and then understand it. So kind of separating what you're actually doing and what you say you're actually doing, was really, it took me several weeks to get my head around.
How do you now describe it to a man in the pub?
Depends on the man in the pub. Me. It still depends on the man in the pub.
You did a whole 6-minute description, weren't you?
We have a system that can, automate human-intensive decision-making processes. So if you have a person who will decide which car it's appropriate for someone to share a lift in, and there's a person, not a piece of software, a person who's sitting down with some expertise, who's maybe been in the business for a year and has figured out a really good way of doing that, making that matching, and it's not a process, it's just the way that he thinks about doing this. RainBird is the platform that will take that and then scale it out so you can do that without him being there. Awesome. We'll have a talk later.
So what you're saying is a way of losing your own job. So you provide the knowledge.
What was the line? We support your staff so that every day is their best day.
One last.
But it's their best day.
So you guys obviously you're talking a lot about how you've actually learned to communicate what your business is and how to put it in a way that perhaps a techie geek doesn't necessarily understand. What other really surprising entrepreneurial skills do you think you've taken away that you think you would apply going forward, or you would perhaps, if you were a mentor, what would you convey to another startup in your
That's a very good question. I think that's probably different for all of us. Personally, I've never raised money from investors before, and there is a way of talking to investors and of describing what it is that you're doing and going through that whole process, and there's a negotiation and all of that is quite a difficult process to do completely cold. And I'm now getting to that I can do it. We're about to close this round, so I think for me that was quite a big thing. I don't know about you.
Certainly, I would say from having an idea as a developer, before even developing a line of code, it was very much a push towards going out and actually putting the idea in front of people to try and get their reaction and try and find out if you need to change what you're doing very quickly at the beginning. And that really made me, I always believed that I could have a great idea, code it, and it would just be a success. And I think
see your code.
I never have before.
What's that, man? Do you want a job?
You've seen my code. You've seen my code.
Yeah,
that's the problem. Yeah, so I certainly learned from Matt that certainly isn't the case, that you need to bring lots of people in at the absolute beginning, not even a few months into it, but straight away. It's certainly not that.
I think one of the other things you said about advice to give to people, I think we had an advantage in that we had a bigger team, and Ben and James certainly in the first few weeks spent a lot of time and effort making sure that we all understood what we were doing. So certainly by the time we got to demo day, some more or less articulately than others had the ability to have a vaguely sensible conversation with an investor about what we're doing, what our product is, who our customers are going to be, how customers are going to pay for it, what kind of investment we're doing at the minute. So, while Ben is then off at 10 Downing Street, where he obviously regularly is, there are five other people that have the ability to do it. So, we had to spread ourselves incredibly thinly at Techstars, and having everyone able to do the same, whilst it took a lot of late night chats and what have you. I think. Do you think that was
absolutely? I think that I think that's something that you'd be very hard pushed to get if we just carried on doing the 9 to 5 here. Getting a cohesive team who all understand and believe in the product, believe in the direction, understand really intimately the reasons for the decisions that we've made around the direction we're selling and all of that stuff, right down to the technical team and all of that. That's really hard to get if you're just doing your normal 9 to 5 in an office somewhere. In fact, we were all living together and we were all going through this process together. We were all going to the meetings together. We had the Thursday sessions with everybody all together. I think that is invaluable.
Actually, one of the mentors at Techstars said that that's one of the biggest differences he notices between the UK and US startups. Said the US startups, generally you can pick anyone from the company at random and they can all tell you what the strategy is, how they've raised money, company history, company future. He said in the UK, unless you get CEO, CTO or the sales stroke biz dev guy, you fail.
Do you think it's because they start from brand outwards, or do you think so they come up with the concept over the idea? It's a really interesting difference, actually.
I think that probably is part of it, and I think a lot of the kind of West Coast mentality is about team. investors invest in team, not product. And
it's a lot to do. RainBird is our company.
Yeah.
All of us, we've built this company with blood, sweat and tears. Quite literally, we've all had to build IKEA furniture in this morning. You know what a dusty thing is. So I think that's a big difference. It isn't a 9 to 5 for any of us. It's not a job. It's something we do. And I think that makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
You've started, so how does this end?
It doesn't. So Techstars, there's a program called Techstars for Life.
No, I mean, how does your company?
How does our company end?
Billionaires.
Yeah. our intention is to follow the route of many similar startups. We will in probably in 5 or 6 years' time, we'll be looking to IPO or be acquired. We don't quite know how that's going to shape out yet. We have predicted some rounds of investment that will be required to scale the business to get there. We have forecasts and plans around that, but we're still very early stage. But that's the intention.
Have there been any? Yeah, so you're staying in Norwich?
Yes, absolutely.
And there hasn't been any of the VCs you've been talking to, there's been no pressure to change that?
There hasn't been any pressure to change that. We are keeping 2 desks in London. We have, so Techstars is based in the offices of an organisation called Playfair Capital, who are just off Clerkenwell Road. So we're keeping a couple of desks there because a lot of our clients are in London. There has been no pressure at all. It's very easy to be convincing about Norwich. I think Mike Butcher put it well, and I can't stick the man. When he came up to Norwich, he said that if you look at the Bay Area in San Francisco, it can take 2 hours to go from one side to the other. And a lot of the startup talent is on one side of the bay and has to travel over to Palo Alto on the other side. It's only 2 hours from Norwich to London. And actually, when you're in the when you're in the middle of when you get to Liverpool Street, you're there. So why not be based in Norwich?
Most people at Techstars had an hour's commute to get into work anyway.
Yeah.
Even when they were living in London. So really, it seemed to make a difference.
In fact, ironically enough, Geospot, based in Cambridge, decided as they were so close, they could commute in. So they had 1 or 2 key people coming in, and other people came in as and when it was needed, and they actually discovered the final few weeks as and when needed was every single day. So by being closer and being in sort of the Cambridge area, they shot themselves in the foot. With us having that extra bit, we decided to move.
So certainly in our discussions with VCs at the moment, it's not even come up. It's not a problem at all.
Can't leave us.
We're not.
I'm just interested how you got your first customer, particularly when you didn't have a customer. Do you know what I mean? Because, and also when you didn't necessarily have a product. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So that's hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard.
Well, I would imagine for anybody, even Neil, you know, with the app, it's getting that first people to buy your product.
It's 0 to 1. That's very hard. So you shamelessly exploit your personal networks. You call out to everyone you know on LinkedIn and everyone your team knows on LinkedIn, and you just go and push as much as you possibly can. Be quite brazen about it. That's one of the things that Techstars is great for, because it's all about network and all about connections. If you can go and talk to one of these mentors or somebody who's connected, or you've got this idea that you think there might be an interesting KYC application for in banks for your tech, you can go and say, I think I've got this idea, who should I talk to? And they'll go and find somebody who is relevant in a business and connect you with them, and then they can go and signpost you out, and then you go and find clients that way. The power of that network is really quite significant. We tested it actually when we, you know what I'm going to say, when we started Techstars. They said, who are the people you'd most like to talk to who you think could help your business? Because we can connect you to anyone. Yeah, you can't connect us to anyone. So I said, Stephen Wolfram. I want to talk to Stephen Wolfram. Thinking they wouldn't do it. Within a week, I was on the phone with Stephen Wolfram.
Wow.
It genuinely is a powerful network.
IBM Watson.
Watson came to talk to us.
And it's not just the companies you get connected to; it's the people within the companies. You know, so if we had just pre-Techstars, you'd have to work your way through the layers to get to those people. But you're literally parachuted straight into decision makers, you know, really influential people that are kind of shielded from the outside world by the layers of the company.
That doesn't mean you can necessarily sell to those people.
No, but you get that stuff.
It gives you a way of getting into this.
The way I describe it is the Masons for techies.
Yeah.
The Masons for techies.
Watson have obviously got their own tech. Is there any interest in getting some help from your technology?
We were one of the reasons we wanted to talk to Watson was because it came up in a lot of discussions with investors. Was who are your competitors? Obviously Watson. How do you compete against Watson? Actually, having spoken to them, they're very complementary to what we do. They are not competitors.
They're more general knowledge and you're more focused?
We're about taking human expertise. Watson's about trawling through large sets of prior data. And in fact, Watson isn't a thing. It's a whole set of small, discrete APIs. There's a whole load of natural language stuff. There's a whole load of machine learning stuff. And it's very, actually, our work is in a very different space to us. So there's actually, I think, we will end up doing some work with Watson using some of their API to support what we're doing. They have a very odd program for working with startups. They don't work with startups unless you've already essentially achieved a Series A type fundraise, but yet they have their own venture fund. If you're a significant company, you have to go through quite a lot of hoops to kind of work with their partners. It's a very, very different model to the way we work.
Do you think that as your business model has changed from more of a self-service consumer, which lends itself to a really short sales cycle, and you could learn a lot and do a lot with that in the 13 weeks or whatever it was. Now that you're on a corporate sales cycle, and that could be 18 months, that's way longer than the period you have with Techstars. How do they support you? I mean, it might not be 18 months, but worst case.
Yeah.
How do Techstars support you going forward? Obviously, you've got the network of people you know, but that will start to cool off a little bit.
Yep. So there's a bunch of ways they support. By connecting us with angel investors. One of the reasons we're raising this round now and not going for Series A, most of the VCs would like to see revenue and traction in order to achieve a Series A type raise, and we haven't got there yet. It's going to take us some time because, as you say, corporate sales cycles are long.
Marquee customers.
You do.
And then you go for another big
surge forwards. So in order to do that, we have to have some intermediary backing, which is why we're raising this money. And Techstars have introduced us to a round of angels who are helping support that fundraise, which is what we're doing at the moment. Part of what we're doing is going to need us to recruit. It's going to need us to recruit sales and marketing type people, both in London and here. Techstars Network is very good for that, so we want to go and find a superstar salesperson. Then we can say, I'm looking for a superstar salesperson who's got experience of selling to corporates from a startup with very little traction. What do we do? And they can go and help us find those people, and just finding the intros into the corporates who can start with these pilots that we're working on at the moment to get us through that process.
I think actually the pilots are important as well. Although the sales cycle is longer, doing a 2-month proof of concept with a large corporate, because I've been doing those, you actually learn more doing a very focused thing, because it just drives out any issues or any new features that we need quicker than you would if you were working with a beta user, so an individual. Because you've got 5 or 6 people at a company kind of chucking requests at you.
It's a real problem.
Yeah, exactly. It's a real problem, and those real problems you don't get the same level of scrutiny from individuals.
And the other thing about Techstars is that it gets a lot of inbound interest from corporates who want to be innovative. And a lot of these corporates have innovation departments who go and start work in a warehouse somewhere and they all wear jeans instead of suits. And that's a ticking innovation box. But
innovation, they all wear suits.
Right. But what that means is if you can start working with those people, they understand how to work with startups, which helps to reduce the sales cycle down, so you can work on more focused, smaller projects that actually will get some revenue quicker. So it's a good way of getting into those kinds of parts of
that's the problem.
Yeah.
And it's how do you get the innovative kind of, they're prepared to sit down there and just go for it rather than trying to
and it continue. You spend 9 months on a project with somebody and with the expectation that you're going to reach some sales point at the end, and then that person moves on, and so you then have to pass over all that project again and start all over again. So your sales cycle becomes even longer. It's hard work.
The other thing is we're actually going into these large organisations now and just talking about the tech, not the sales role.
Yeah.
So that you're sort of seeding the idea about using RainBird amongst people who may then go and look at it. So getting that bit of exposure as well, which
It is.
Well,
So you guys out of cohort probably in a unique position where you all moved there, you lived there for 3 months. How was that? I mean, probably personal, but how was that on your personal lives?
It was very hard. So we moved into 3 flats between the 6 of us in central London, about 5-minute walk from Liverpool Street. We all were there in the week, away from our families and children, and that was extremely challenging. It was very hard work. Couple that with working 18-hour days and living with these guys, it was very, very difficult. It was absolutely worth it, but it was only possible because we had the support of our families behind us. That would have been double.
But it also helps to know you have 13 weeks.
Yeah.
So it's different to if you suddenly take on a permanent job in London and you don't know when it's going to end. You do know that 13 weeks time will, to some extent, go back to normality. So you're hopeless.
And it helps that you're with other people. We weren't the only ones who moved to London especially for it. There were a number of London-based businesses.
There weren't other companies that moved in their entirety, were there?
No, that's true. Skander moved from Kazakhstan and slept in the office a lot of the time. They'll be back. In fact, I was up there last week and he was still sleeping on a beanbag in the middle of the day in the office.
He also did the final pitch in a pair of lit up glasses.
Yes. Yeah.
Quite bizarre.
Slightly terrifying.
Yeah. I think the other thing is...
You're certainly correct.
I think the other thing is being away from the family is actually brought us closer together. You know, because everyone was going through the same, you know, frustrations and difficulties, and you know, Dave's absolutely right. Monday's kind of euphoric. Yeah, we're going back to London. Thursday night, don't talk to me, I'm going to kill you. You know, but because we were all together, you know, you can't. Not to be too deep and meaningful, but you can't hide who you really are for 13 weeks when you're together for 20 hours a day. It's just not possible.
Chris and I, quite literally, when we first moved in together, had a discussion about what am I like when I'm moving, what do you do to deal with me when I'm moving.
Yeah, flowers and dinner was the answer.
And I have to cook. And you sort of you get that out in the open straight away. So when there were nights where it's just like, I'm sorry, mate, I'm off to bed, and you know, I don't want to deal with anyone. I think if there was one blog post where I put it, it was just like, I'm not playing anymore. It was literally, I walked into the pub, looked around, and thought, I can't stand anyone. Not just these guys. Anyone. We're going home.
You know, I think it's undoubtedly brought everyone closer together. You know, and you just, I think we know each other probably better than most other colleagues.
Probably more than you want to see.
Yeah.
In your case.
When you start the first day at Techstars, that was known before, you start the programme with a big treasure hunt across London. There's lots of people who don't really know London very well and trying to get teams all together. It's not about working as separate businesses, everyone's working together as a big kind of cohesive thing. John Bradford stood up and did this big thing, and one of the first slides he put up was make sure you told your families that you're not going to see them for the next 30 years.
That's heavy.
Yeah.
Well, I'd actually, so I made a conscious decision. I used to live in Colchester, work in London, and then see my now wife every weekend, so I knew what that commute was like. I used to do that commute every weekend, and I wasn't going to be able to do that with 18-hour days. So I sat her down and said, I'm not coming home this weekend. And I went back pretty much every other weekend. So we had the argument up front. Got that over and done with. She then was a single mum for 102 days, heavily pregnant at the same time.
So you've had the argument up front, the 3 months of stony silence.
And yet you're here tonight.
She's in the ward, she's fine. I didn't argue with her.
She don't know.
I laid the facts out. She shouted at me for the next 10 years. If she wants to go out, yes, she can go out.
For the record, I'm highly disappointed you're here tonight.
I was going home.
So I have a couple more questions and then, yes, drinks time. Any more?
Just in terms of startup process, like you said, you were a sort of a pre-revenue company and then you've got a certain amount of seed investment and you build a team. So if you were a company that hadn't actually sold anything, how did you kind of sell your dream to these guys? And to these guys, why did you decide to come on board?
Good question.
Yeah, it's a good question. We are still a pre-revenue company, and they're still here. Yeah, how did I sell this to you? Why are you here?
I heard about RainBird within about a week of it being started, and started dropping very subtle hints to Ben about, would you like a Java developer? And a year later, he sort of said, well, I want a developer, not necessarily a Java developer. So we discussed what my skill set was and what was needed, and it didn't match at all in any way, shape or form. But because I'd actually been using the tech in my previous job, I wanted the job. And Ben and I knew each other, so he was reasonably happy to put up with me.
I think that's part of the thing, we've known each other before. That is really powerful building a team, particularly if you're going to go through a process like Techstars where it's going to be so intense. I think, you know, you guys want to come and work at a startup. And working at a startup carries quite significant risks. But the difference between that and working anywhere else is that you can see the risks because we're entirely transparent with everybody. You know precisely where we are with our money, you know precisely where we are with this fundraise. That's no different. You know, there were people working for Lehman Brothers who thought they were going to work for their job first thing that morning and they didn't have a job.
Actually, they had to continue working for a month in order to get paid, maybe.
Yeah. So there are risks in any employment. Difference in a startup is that you can see the whites of the pilot's eyes as he's crashing.
As a developer, Ben's been my manager before, so kind of when I knew he was looking for somebody, I kind of applied, and he knew what he was getting, I knew what I was getting. So as far as the startup and the risk of that, there's risk, but there's also a certain element of reward out of it. So the worst case scenario is that developers know, worst case you end up having to get a contract, you end up going down to London for a few months and so on. In fact, if it comes to that, then I was prepared to do it, so I suppose that's why I was prepared to.
You're better set now to do that.
Yes, exactly. You learn a lot more, and a lot more different skills as well.
And I think we're building something quite compelling. I think it's quite easy to, once you've got the proposition across to somebody, which is difficult, once you've got the proposition across and someone kind of gets it, understands what we're doing and what the big vision is and where we're going with it, then I think it's quite easy to sell.
Can I completely burst your bubble?
Yeah.
Clue what you were talking about.
Yeah, do you know?
Well, yeah, kind of. I actually had a kind of slightly different view of job risk because I'd been made redundant and I kind of got the opportunity to speak to Ben and James. So so 2 redundancies in 15 years, my view of job security changed significantly. Really the biggest factor for me was Ben and James. I'd worked for James and kind of alongside Ben in a previous business.
The other thing from Chris's point, so Chris,
I just tell them what my review is first.
Oh, it's like old times.
Married couple.
So yeah, for me personally, it was predominantly the people involved. I trusted James, I liked James, I kind of liked how he worked. And whilst I didn't really understand the full potential of the tech, I kind of knew that these were 2 really smart people. So for me it was the people involved, and I'll probably understand this one day and maybe actually understand how cool it is, which I do now. Sorry, what was the other thing?
When Chris was brought on, we didn't know what we wanted Chris to do, so he was brought on temporary. And it was just a doer of things. So one of the interesting things, because it is a startup and Chris has had to do pretty much everything, from really sort of mundane stuff to really quite techy stuff, and it's just actually watching him grow.
Not literally.
So Nathan's been teaching Chris CSS, and there was a wonderful moment where I couldn't actually remember what selector I needed. And Chris knew, and you're like, you know more than I do about CSS.
That was my point for Techstars. Correcting Dom on something.
You see that level of growth in a normal sort of corporate company. So it's been wonderful just to see everyone sort of grow like that.
So, shall we call it a wrap? Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you for listening.